Yeah. Shoot.
So we're on Nun Amar Aleph. Eisvei Rav Yitzchak Nafkel Ravan. It says v'hotzias kol hapar, that they removed the par, and even though it's after they shech the par and they're finished with everything, they say take it out. Now they're referring to the par even after shchita. So the Gemara says that so the dam also can be referred to as the par. So the Gemara says no, sheyotzias kulo. That means you got to take everything out. But you can't learn from there that it means the dam is also the par. Then it says, "V'as parachatos, v'as seirachatos asher huva es damam lekaper bakodesh yotzia mechutz hamachaneh." So you see, even part of the par after shechita is called the par. Amar Papa v'or uvaser uferesh. Everyone holds that the hide, the meat, and the innards, kulam aloy pligi, that's called the par. The par. Ki pligi bedam. The only question is, once you drain the blood, is the blood itself called the par? Mar sover damikri par. One whole that remember we're having a machlokas. If one kohen gadol dies and a new kohen gadol comes in, does he have to shech the new par from the beginning, or can he use the dam that the first kohen gadol collected? So mar sover damikri par, and since this is also called the par, you can take the blood. Umar sover dam lo ikri par. And therefore, you have to start from the new shechit. It's more logical to hold like the mandama that says that the blood is called the part. Bezos yavo Aaron ela kodesh befar ben bakar. With this, the kohen gadol goes in, and what is he going? He goes with the blood. So, and yet it's called the part, right? Otu bekarnim ayale. Does he go in with the horns? Ela bedomo, the korele part. So what is the other mandomer who holds that you cannot go? The dam is not called the part. The idich. What gives a kohen gadol the right to go to the Kodesh Kadoshim? It's the process of the par. It doesn't refer to the blood. Now the Gemara is going to say that if the first kohen gadol, how can you say that the kohen gadol who replaces the first kohen gadol can go in with the par, with the blood of the par? The whole korban isn't good anymore because we have a principle. A chatas, somebody designated an animal a chatas because he ate dam or he ate chalef, and then he dies. So the din is such a chatas goes lemisa. Well, the par is also a chatas. And we're talking about when the kohen gadol dies, and then a replacement comes in. Well, if the kohen gadol is considered the owner of this par, and he died, it's an example of chatas shemesu balel, and the whole korban should be lemisa. Armali Ravin Barav Adel Rava Amri Talmidech Amar Amram chatas tzibur hi v'lo lemisa azma. This par is not like a private chatas that when a person eats chaylev or dam, he brings a korban chatas. A chatas yochid ena chanami shemesu ba'aleha, the par goes lemisa. However, here it's a chatas tzibur because the kohen gadol isn't just getting atonement for himself; he's getting atonement for all the kohanim, and eventually for Gans Klal Yisrael, because it says v'chiper ba'ado v'ad beitzu v'ad kol Klal Yisrael. And ein misa l'tzibur. That means a korban tzibur it doesn't go to misa because the netzach Yisrael lo yishakir. The tzibur doesn't die. This nan Amar Rav Meir v'alo par Yom Kippurim. The chavite kohen gadol, the normal minchas chavit in the kohen gadol every day. Upesach, the korban yochid who. These are examples of korban yochid. V'doiches haShabbos v'satuma. Yet you can do them on Shabbos, and you can do them even if you're tummy. Now, lav nichlal deikal mandomer ditzibur. This mandomer Rav Meir holds that it's a yochid. But there must be another mandomer that holds it's a tzibur. And therefore, that's the answer as to why it's not a problem that when a Kohen Gadol dies, it's a problem because of Chatas Shemei Subala, because it's a Korban Tzibur. Freit Gemara Ula Tamech, based on your svar diktoni, Amar Rabbi Kiva, v'halo par helen dover shel tzibur. If the Sanhedrin made a mistake and they paskined improperly and they have to bring a par helen dover shel tzibur, or Seir Avodah Zarah, they made a mistake regarding a psak of Avodah Zarah, and a Korban Chagiga, the Korban Tzibur, the Ein Doichin Lois HaShabbos V'los HaTumah. Yet they're not Doichin Shabbos and Tumah. Michlal, the Ikelamanda Omer, that these Korbanos are Korbane Yochid. They were responding to the Tanakama. This Shomei, they heard the Tanakama say, you know what? Normally Korban Tzibur is Doiches HaShabbos V'Satuma. And a private Korban Yochid, ain't a Doichet, Lois HaShabbos V'Satuma. In that, Omer Lo Rab Meir, Korban Yochid Klalu, you think this has to do with Korban Yochid versus Korban Tzibur? V'alo Par Yom HaKippurim. The Chavite Kohen Gadol Pesach, the Korban Yochid, who yet Doichenes HaShabbos V'Satuma. It has to do with whether there's a pasuk that says it. It has nothing to do with whether it's a Korban Yochid or not. Rabbi Yaakov, Korban Tzibur Klalu, it's not a matter of Korban Tzibur either. Alo Parlam Dover Shel Tzibur. Usiri Avodah Zarah Chagiga the Korban Tzibur who the Ein Doichen Los HaShabbos V'Los. This rule of what is Doichen Shabbos and Tumah is not necessarily related to whether it's classified as a Korban Yochid or a Korban Tzibur. Ela Nekal Hai Klola B'Yadech. Take the following principle. Kol Shezmano Kavua. If a Korban has a specific date, for example, the Korban Pesach has to be brought Yud Daled Nisan. So therefore, such a thing, if it lands on Shabbos or if the people are Tomei, it's Doicha Shabbos and Tumah. Doicha Shabbos and Tumah Filu B'Yochid. That's whether it's a Korban Tzibur, whether it's a Korban Yochid. The Kol She'ein Zmano Kavua. But for example, if it's a Korban that you can bring at any time, it's not necessarily Kavua to time. Ein Adocha Los Tumah Afilu B'Tzibur, even if it's a Korban. Eisvi Abaya. Par the social Yom Kippur, the par and the goat of Yom Kippur. She'ovdu, they got lost. V'hifrish achrem tachteh, and they designated another korban, and then the originals are found. So the originals are put to death. Kulam yamusu. It's another example of a chatas like Shemei Subale, the Chain Seir Avodah Zarah, the sawyer that is brought for Aveira Avodah Zarah, She'ovdu, V'hifrish Achrem Tachtem, and another goat was separated, and then they found the first one. Kulam Yamusu, Div Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon, no, they're not put to death. Yiru Achi Yistavu, they graze until they get a mum. V'yamachru. The money is used to buy oilos. She'ein chatas tzibur mesa. A chatas designated by the tzibur isn't put to death. So Omer lei my par. So you want to say par here refers to par Kohen Gadol? No, it refers to only the par helam davar shel tzibur. Freit the Gemara v'Hayshel Yom Kippurim. It says very clearly par Yom Kippurim. Kiktani adis sa'ir. The Yom Kippurim korban it's referring to there is the goat, not the par. Which in a chanami, the sa'ir is clearly for the tzibur. Vahatanya, the Gemara says it's not so. Par shel Yom Kippurim, this sa'ir shel Yom Kippurim she'ovdu, v'hifrish achrem tachteim, and they got lost, and you separated replacements. What do you do with the originals? Kulam yamusu de Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon, Yiru Achi Yistavu. And here you can't get away to say that it's referring only to the soil Yom Kippurim. It says very clearly partial Yom Kippurim. So the Gemara says, "Lo tema she'ein chatas tzibur mesa." This is not an example of a chatas tzibur. Ema she'ein chatas hashutofin mesa. The fact that the Kohen Gadol is going in to request kapara not just for himself, but for the brother's kohanim, it's considered like a korban of shutafim. It's like partners that went in on a korban, but it's not really a korban sibur like we understand a korban sibur. So when we say Einon Mesos, that's only by a true korban sibur, but not by shutafim. Umay nafkamina. What's an nafkamina? Whether we designate something as a korban sibur or as a korban shutafim. This is a whole bezdin or a shevet that made a mistake in psak. Then they bring parlam dovashul tzibur. But if a bezdin of kohanim make a mistake, that's it's not considered a tzibur. That's considered like partners because it's like only kohanim. It's not a shevet. So Toshma. The boy Rabbi Lazar, Divrei ha'omer par Yom Kippurim korban yachid. So we see we have a machlokes whether the par that Aaron Kohen was brought is it considered a korban sibur or a korban yachid. Now we've definitely found a Tana that held that it was a korban yachid. So if it's a korban yachid, oisa tamura o eina oisa tamura. We know the concept of tamura. You have a korban, and then you have another animal next to it. And you say, I want this animal to be a tamura of this. So the kedusha, if it's a shlomim, gets moved over to the other animal as kedusha shlomim. But you can only a korban yachid can be made a tamura. A korban sibur cannot. Well, what about the par Yom Kippurim? According to the mandoma, that's korban yachid. Can it make a tamura or not? Now, lav michlad iklamando omar ditzipur. From that statement, it seems clear that there's another bando.
If it's a korban yachid, how can it be mechaper on the tzibur? The par of Yom Kippurim.
It's called paro. It's called his par. Aaron HaKohen brings it from his own money.
I understand he brings it from his own money, but he's
therefore
part of the tzibur.
No, but it's only for him and for his brother Kohanim. Later on, we shech the sa'ir that goes for Klal Yisrael. So the par that's why there's an issue. There's a par, even though later he's going to make a vidui over that par as well. That refers to Klal Yisrael.
But the video applies to Klal Yisrael, not only the Kohanim.
Well, that's why you'll see it says he makes the vidui for himself and for Beso. And then in parentheses, it's Kahal Kol Yisrael because they later bring the sa'ir, and the vidu for Kahal Yisrael is done over the sa'ir, and they bring both blood, the blood of the par and the blood of the sa'ir in the Kodesh Kodashim. So really, it's the sa'ir's viduing that goes for Klal Yisrael.
I understand, but even when the par, even though it's the Kohen Gadol and he pays for it for himself,
and it's for his brother Kohanim. Kohanim. So that's not called a tzibur.
But you see that it's mechaper on Kol Klal Yisrael.
Not the par. On the sa'ir is, but not the par. The par is mechaper for him and the brother Kohanim. And the Gemara is learning now that the Echav Kohanim create a korban shutafim, which is different than a korban sibur, because a shevet will have a din of it's like if the bezdin of shevet binyamin makes a mistake in psak, they bring a par helam dover shel tzibur, because even a shevet is called tzibur, but the Kohanic family is not called tzibur. They didn't get a nachla, they don't have the Yerusha, so for whatever reason, they're not a tzibur, they're shutafim.
But Yom Kippurim should be Yom Kippurim is the day of the entire tzibur, not only the Kohanim.
Right, but you see that they bifurcated the kapara process.
Okay, yeah.
That's why you bring a par and you bring a sotnir.
There's only one man dama holds like that.
No, you're going to see the Mishnah later on is going to show us that the vidu that he does for Gans Kahal Yisrael was made over the sotnir, not the par.
Okay.
Here, the last Mishnah. Let's see. Up until now, we've only had two vidui. We haven't had the third vidui.
Okay.
We
Let's
had
say,
Hena. We had Ono Hashem.
yeah.
They came to the par the second time, and he says, period. So and then we'll see when he says we also in Yom Kippur we have three v'kachaya oimers. We say vidui three times. It's only the last vidui which was done on the Sa'ir, which is done for Gans Klal Yisrael. That's why we have a Manda Omar that holds that it's a Korban Yochid. But the other Manda Omar holds it's a Korban Shutofim because he also does it on the brother Kohen.
Okay.
Gufa. Boy Rabbi Lozer. L'divrei Omer par Yom Kippurim Korban Yochid. According to Manda Omar that says that this par is a Korban Yochid, Oisit Tmura, Oino Oisit. You didn't answer, can you make it Tmura or not? So my Kama Boy, what's your shine? Ibasar Magdish Azlinon. Do we look at who was Makadesh the Korban? Or Ibasar Miskaper Azlinon? Or who the Korban is coming to me Miskaper for? Pshita the Basar Miskaper Azlinon. We go after who the kapara is for. The Amrav Avo Amrav Yochel. Hamagdish Moisef Chomesh. The Magdish it adds a fifth. If, for example, there was Me'ila, but Vahamiskaper Oisa Batmura. The one who's getting the kapar based on that korban, he's the one that has the power to make a tmura. The hatoyer mishalosh al chaveiro. I see that Walter has harvested a bunch of wheat. I can donate the truma from my own. Hatoyer mishalosh al chaveiro toivus anoshel. Now, if I am giving the truma on behalf of Walter, I can designate to which kohen I give it to. And that's worth something. That's called toivus anoshel. That means somebody could give me a tip, $20 to give it to his cousin, the kohen that lives down the block. So we see Tmura goes after the miskaper. So the boy says, "Lo'ilam pshita lo debasa miskaper zin." That's not a difficult issue. That's poshu. V'hari kamaboy. This is our question. Echav hakohan bikviyus miskapri. Is the fact that the Kohen Gadol does the vidui on the par. Are they thinking? Is he thinking about the echa? Are they part of the ikar kapar of this korban? Or is it like agav? Really, he's making his own kapara, and the other kohanim are sort of schlepped along. Oidilma bekufya miskap means it's a derech agav. And the ikar kapara is for the Kohen Gadol, and that's the true kapara. So that's the shaila whether the Kohen Gadol himself can make it tmur or not, because it could be not only is he the magdish, but he's the miskaper. Toshma. So come in here and answer. These are gemaras that we're going to learn in Masechta Tmura, God willing. Chomer bazevach mi batruma. There are certain stringencies that a regular korban has over a tmura. The chomer b'tmura mi bazevach. There's some stringencies by tmura more than a regular korban. Chomer b'zevach shazevach noich b'yachid kivatzibur. By regular korbanos, you have korban yachid, you have korban sibur. The doiches hashabbos. Therefore, there are examples of korbanos that are doiches shabbos, like the korban pesach, miasatuma, and a regular korban oisa tmura. Any korban you can make a tmura from. Masha ein kain betmura. There is no such thing as a korban seaboard tmura, and there is no such thing as a tmura is doicha shabbos and doicha tumma, and a tmura doesn't make another tmura. So these are all examples where the primary korban is more stringent than the tmura. Chomer b'tmurim v'zevach. Now, what's a stringency? What is more chomerdik by a tmura than a regular korban? Shatmura chala al bamum kavua. Gentlemen, If you have an animal standing in front of you, and it's got a mum, not a mum oiver, not a passing mum, but a real mum, and I try to make it hegdish, I say harezu shlomim. The shlomim hegdish will not take hold of that animal. I can only be magdish with primary korban kedusha, an animal that's a tummy. However, if there's a regular shlomim standing in front of me, another animal wanders by, and that animal has a mum kavua, and I say harezu tmura, I make that animal a tmura, there's a chalos kedusha on that, even though it's a balmum. So that's choimer shebetmura, that it's chala al balmum kavua. Ve ein yotz lechun ligazes v'la'ave. A tmura can never become mutter to shear its wool or to work it. There's no way to be matir the kedusha, which we'll see by other korbanos. You can be matir kedusha. If it gets a mum and you're pointing it, mashen came by zevach, which are not true by a zevach. Sometimes a zevach can go out. For example, if a korban first was made hegdish and then it got a mum, then it can never be worked either, even after pit. But if, for example, if a mum, an animal that had a mum, and you made it hegdish, so it gets a certain kedusha, but only kedusha of eitzim va'avonim, like for Beta Kabayis. There's no kedusha saguf. It's only kedusha stomim. And therefore, if you redeem such an animal, it goes out lechulin legamri, and you can even work it and you can shave it. Okay. So this brisa of chomer bezevach matura, chomer beturim bezevach, it's a fundamental brisa, which we're going to learn very in depth in the Masechta Truma Gadol. Now, hi zevach chechida. What kind of korban we talking about? Well, we can't be talking about a korban yachid. Midochi Shabbos v'tuma. Korban yachid does not doicha Shabbos and tuma. Ella the tzibur. We're talking about a korban tzibur. Well, if a korban tzibur miosa tmura, korban tzibur can't be made into a tmura. Well, that's what we think. Ella lav the par. We must be talking about the par of Kohen Gadol, of Yom Kippur. V'doiches Shabbos v'satuma. The kviyah leizman. Right? Because it has to be done on the 10th of Tishrei. The osa tmura, the korban yachidu. And it therefore must make, to fulfill this brisa, the example must be the par of the Kohen Gadol. And we see it makes it tmura because it's a korban yachid. So it looks like we've answered our question. So, Amr of Shesh is low. No proof that the zevach here that we're referring to is the par Yom Kippur. It's the elo shel Aaron. We're going to see later on the Kohen Gadol offers a ram for an olah. That's his personal, very clear, we'll see that he brings that from his personal money. And therefore, that's his korban. And that can make it tmura, but not the par of Yom Kippur. And that's logical. The Isa gedaitich the paro, because if we're referring to the par of Yom Kippur, tmura de par, Shabbos v'tumuhu de lodachia. So the tmura, you're going to say, just like other tmuras, will not be doicha Shabbos and tuma, but habachol makriv karva. What are you going to tell me, that you could be makriv it during the weekday? You're not allowed to be makriv the tmur of a chatas. Ha-tmur is chatas, tmur is chatas lemisa azma. So it only makes sense that we're talking about the ayil and not the par, because the ayil is an olah. It doesn't have the din of an olah that you make a tmur of an olah that it's lemisa. It's not so. So the Gemara deflects that and says, lo olam de par. We could still be referring to the par Yom Kippur. Umay tmura shein tmura means that we're discussing, this brisa is discussing the concept of tmura. Within it, it's koil of these kind of things. So Iachi Zevach Nami Shem Zevach. So then we could be, when we talk about Zevach, don't specify what kind of korban it is. When it says Shem Zevach Lo Ktani, it doesn't say Shem Zevach. Mima, it does say it. Midik Tani Choymer Betmura Shat Tmura Chala Albamum Kavua Veniyot L'Chulin Goes V'Leivei Levi Isak Daitich My Zevach. That we're not talking about a specific korban. We're talking about Shem Zevach, general korbanos. And now we're going to go to Nun Aleph, Mario, 51, Nun Aleph.